I'm sitting in a cold, sterile room, the kind where silence is a command and fear is just another layer of the walls. My hand shakes as I press the record button on the voice recorder, trying to steady my breathing, though I know that any second they'll find me. I don't even know who they are anymore. My name is Dr. Ellis, lead scientist on what was supposed to be an exploratory project, nothing more. But this isn't science, this is survival. They warned us, those who came before, left vague hints in the files, cryptic messages about psychic bleed, and something called the Echoed. I used to think those were just ghost stories, cautionary tales to keep us from poking too deeply into the unknown. I was wrong. The corridor outside is alive with noise, footsteps, or maybe something heavier, closer. There's a low, garbled murmur in a language I don't understand, or at least, I shouldn't. But the words make sense now, somewhere deep in my mind. I recognize them, feel them. Stay back, I whisper into the recorder. The Echoed are real. They've breached containment. We made a mistake. They're not human anymore. And maybe, neither am I. My voice catches as the door crashes open, flooding the room with a harsh white light that feels almost alive. I glimpse a figure in the doorway, shadowed and distorted. Then, impossibly, a voice echoes in my mind, cold and familiar, speaking those same alien words that feel like they're clawing their way out of me. I whisper back, barely conscious of my own voice. I hear you. Before I can stop myself, I respond in that alien language, words pouring out like I've known them forever. The last thing I feel is the recorder slipping from my hand as the figure steps forward, and then, nothing. After that night, things became hazy. I remember flashes, waking up alone in my lab, the lights flickering like they were breathing, and an ache in my head, like something had wormed its way into my brain. I'm still in the hive, but it doesn't feel like it anymore. The walls seem closer, the air colder. No one's around, though I remember others were here. My memory feels fractured, like something's clawing at the edges, tearing pieces away. I pull myself up, using the edge of a metal counter to steady my shaking legs. I know I need to keep moving, but to where? And for what? The entire purpose of the hive. It all feels distant now, a blur of classified documents, surgical instruments, and sterile suits. But a part of me still knows why we were here, why we built the hive in this hidden, desolate corner of the desert. It was never for research. It was containment, control. We weren't trying to learn from the aliens we captured. We were trying to bind them. Area 51 had always been shrouded in conspiracy theories, tales of extraterrestrial encounters, rumors of crashes hidden away from the public eye. But it was only when I joined the project that I realized those stories had some truth. Alien crafts had been found, wreckage scattered across deserts, fields, and deep within mountains. And we weren't just studying those who had crashed. We were studying what could be created from them. A decade ago, they built the hive as an extension of Area 51, isolated from everything, buried so deeply beneath the ground that no one would know. They wanted to experiment not just with alien biology, but with hybridization. Merging alien DNA with human hosts, the department claimed, could lead to unprecedented breakthroughs, superhuman abilities, intelligence beyond imagination, senses that defied human limitations. But those abilities didn't come without a price. I remember the first subject. They called him Subject X01. He'd been a volunteer once, a former soldier, one of those they said had been born for science. He was injected with the first iteration of alien DNA, and for a while, everything was calm. He grew stronger, his senses sharper. He reported strange dreams, visions of places none of us had ever seen, but we chalked it up to the side effects. Then, the dreams grew darker. He started describing beings, faceless, shadowed figures, watching him in those dreams, calling to him. And one day, X-01 woke up screaming in that same alien language I had spoken in. His eyes were black as coal, his veins spiderwebbing across his skin like ink. I realize now I'm shaking, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. There's something here with me. I can feel it, just on the edge of my mind. Something dark and ancient. It's like the hive itself is alive, watching me, feeding off my fear. I force myself to focus, reminding myself why I'm here, why I agreed to lead this project, despite the warnings I ignored. Psychic bleed, I whisper to myself, clutching the edges of the table until my knuckles turn white. It was one of the terms from the old files, words that seemed like science fiction, warnings I had brushed off as paranoia. Now, as I stand here alone, feeling that alien consciousness creeping into my thoughts, I know those warnings were real. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a faint, rhythmic tapping. It's coming from the corridor just outside, slow and deliberate, like something is pacing, waiting for me. The sound sends a chill down my spine, and a memory surges back. One of the researchers had mentioned it once, right before he left. He'd claimed he could hear something in the walls, a faint echo of a language that wasn't ours. I swallow hard, trying to gather my thoughts, but it's useless. I know I have to move, get out of this lab before whatever's out there finds me. Taking a shaky breath, I make my way to the door, glancing once more at the recorder lying on the floor, still blinking red. The corridors of the hive are empty, but every shadow feels like it's watching me. As I make my way down the sterile, flickering hallway, memories of the experiments, the initial experiments, come flooding back. I try to suppress them, but it's as if the place itself won't let me forget. I joined the hive because I was promised the opportunity to work on the cutting edge of science. Unprecedented breakthroughs, they said. But the first time I saw Subject X-01 after the injections, I felt the prickle of something darker. That same subject, who'd started with only minor alterations, sharper senses, a bit more strength, soon began to exhibit other changes. At first, they were small things. Subject X-01 would suddenly go silent, staring off into space as if hearing a distant voice. He'd mumble in that alien tongue, though he'd had no previous exposure to any language like it. We thought it was just the psychological strain, his mind grappling with the genetic mutations we'd forced upon him. But then he started to describe visions that weren't possible, scenes of barren alien landscapes, a sky thick with black clouds. "They're waiting," he'd whisper, "in the spaces between." Soon after, we brought in Subject X-02, a woman this time, young, full of optimism. I remember her eagerness, the way she'd talk about her family back home, how she thought she'd be part of some great leap forward. But the injections did something different to her. She developed a strange sensitivity, an ability to hear things that none of us could. She'd sit in her cell, listening, whispering back to whatever she thought was speaking. When we asked her what she heard, she just shook her head, saying, "They're calling. They're calling from the dark." One night, I stayed late, analyzing her brain scans. She'd been seeing patterns, shapes, symbols, flashing in her mind like hallucinations. The shapes resembled alien runes we'd found on some of the wreckage recovered from crash sites. I remember feeling a chill, wondering if those symbols were somehow burned into her mind. But she wasn't the only one. By the third or fourth subject, something had changed. All of them began to report similar experiences, dark figures, dreams of empty landscapes. But it wasn't just dreams anymore. They would wake up with strange bruises, cuts shaped like those same symbols, etched deep into their skin as if branded from the inside out. And every single one of them described a sound, low, like a hum, but constant. It was as if the walls of the hive themselves were alive, breathing alongside us. I had to know more, so I pushed for more tests, each one more invasive, more ruthless. I see it now for what it was, my obsession. I was so sure I was close to something extraordinary. I dismissed the signs, chalked it all up to the stress of the experiment, the side effects of the injections. But my team, I saw their fear. Some of them even quit. They tried to warn me, to tell me that what we were doing wasn't science. It was desecration, but I was too far in. As I walk through the hall, a whisper rises in my mind, soft but unmistakable. It's in that same alien language, a voice luring me deeper. I realize, with a sickening twist, that the subjects might not have been hearing voices after all. They were being spoken through. I press forward, but my hand brushes something on the wall, a patch of condensation, cold and clammy. The walls here shouldn't be wet, not this far underground. But as I pull my hand back, I notice a pattern beneath the moisture. Symbols, faint but unmistakable. They're the same symbols that had appeared on the subject's skin. The air around me thickens, like something unseen is closing in. I take a deep breath, fighting the urge to turn back, to run. But I know there's nowhere to go. I have to push forward. I have to find out if anyone's left, or if I'm truly alone. Suddenly the humming sound begins again, faint but growing louder. I clutch my head, feeling a stabbing pain between my eyes. Images flash, those alien landscapes, barren and hostile, and dark figures standing in the distance, watching, waiting. I stumble, nearly collapsing against the wall, and realize with horror that I've started to recognize the landscapes in my mind. I can feel the sand beneath my feet, smell the sulfur in the air. I'm seeing something, somewhere that's not here, and it's real. I close my eyes, whispering to myself, it's not real, it's just the bleed. But deep down, I know it's not just that. It's something else, something that's in me now, pulling me deeper into its world. And as I force my eyes open, I realize it might not let me go. The hum intensifies, growing louder and more insistent, like something just beyond the walls is vibrating, scratching to get in or out. I press my palms to my ears, trying to muffle the sound, but it's inside me, reverberating through my skull. The corridors are empty, but I feel eyes on me, cold and calculating, watching my every move. As I turn a corner, I see a figure in the distance, a person slouched against the wall, motionless. My heart leaps at the thought of finding another survivor. Maybe it's Dr. Hawk, the biochemist who worked tirelessly to stabilize the DNA splices. Or Dr. Reyes, who had always been the voice of reason, the one who urged caution, the one who had seen the warning signs before any of us. But as I step closer, I realize that whoever this is, they're not alive in any real sense. The figure's face is slack, eyes open but unfocused, pupils dilated, staring blankly into nothingness. Their skin is pallid, with a network of blackened veins crawling up their neck and across their face. It's one of the test subjects, Subject X04, I think. I remember her now, a young woman with a quick wit and a fearless streak. She volunteered eagerly, talking about how this was her chance to be a part of something revolutionary. Now, she's a husk of who she was, her mind echoed. The term hits me hard. The echoed was a nickname we used in the lab, half in jest, half in fear. They were the ones who'd gone too far, who couldn't handle the bleed, the ones who didn't just hear voices, but started speaking in languages they had no way of knowing. We tried to contain them, to isolate them, but they always seemed to be one step ahead, as if some other intelligence was guiding their movements. The echoed didn't just lose themselves, they became vessels. I crouch down beside her, my hand trembling as I reach out to touch her shoulder. Her skin is cold, lifeless, but as my fingers brush her, her head jerks upright, her eyes snapping into focus, pinning me with a stare that feels alien. Dr. Ellis, she rasps, her voice a mix of her own and something far deeper, something ancient and hollow. They're coming. They're already here. The voice is like nails on glass, grating and unnatural. I stagger back, my breath caught in my throat. I want to run, to put as much distance between myself and this thing as possible. But her hand snaps out, gripping my wrist with inhuman strength. "They see you now," she whispers, her voice slipping in and out of that alien tone. Her eyes lock onto mine, and for a second, I'm somewhere else, standing in a vast, desolate landscape. Blackened skies loom overhead, and dark figures stand in the distance, watching me with eyes that glow like embers. The cold seeps into my bones, and I can feel their gaze, a pressure that digs into my mind like claws, rooting around in my thoughts, searching for something. I wrench my arm free, stumbling backward as the vision fades, the sterile corridor snapping back into focus. She slumps back against the wall, her gaze returning to that blank, empty stare. But I can still hear the echo of her words in my mind, chilling and unshakable. They're already here. My heart pounds, a deep, primal fear settling in. The Echoed are more than just test subjects gone wrong. They're conduits, doors to something else, and whatever is on the other side has been waiting, biding its time. I back away, forcing myself to move, to think. If the Echoed are spreading, if their minds are no longer their own, then how many of us in the Hive have already been compromised? And what about me? I can still feel that presence, lurking in the corners of my mind, whispering in a language I shouldn't understand, words that feel both foreign and familiar, as if they've always been there, waiting to be remembered. I press on, but the corridors seem to close in around me, the walls somehow darker, the air thicker. The hum follows me, a constant presence, like a heartbeat pounding in time with my own. Every now and then, I pass another Echoed, each one staring vacantly, caught in some terrible limbo between life and death. Their lips twitch as I pass, as if they're speaking words too quiet to hear. I want to turn back, to find the exit, to escape this place. But something pulls me deeper, a compulsion I can't explain, a need to understand what's happening here. I have to know how far this has gone, how much of me is still me. As I move, I come to a sealed door with a small observation window covered in condensation. Inside, I can make out the faint silhouette of another person. I wipe the glass with my sleeve, revealing Dr. Reyes slumped against the far wall, her eyes wide with terror. She's whispering to herself, rocking back and forth, her hands clutching her head. I press the intercom button. "Doctor? Reyes? It's me, Ellis." Her head snaps up, her eyes focusing on me with a look of pure, desperate fear. "They're inside us," she whispers, her voice shaking. "They're using us as bridges. We're not ourselves anymore, Ellis. They're feeding on us." The words send a chill through me, colder than anything I've felt before. Feeding on us? Using us as bridges? I don't want to believe it, but deep down, I know she's right. I can feel it, something gnawing away at my mind, a presence lurking in the corners of my thoughts, biding its time. I release the intercom button and turn away, my legs feeling weak, my mind racing. This isn't just an experiment gone wrong. This is an invasion, a quiet, insidious takeover, and we invited it in with open arms. As I walk away from the door, Dr. Reyes's words echo in my mind. We're bridges. I don't know what that means, but I have a feeling I'm about to find out. The hallways feel longer, stretching like some distorted nightmare as I press forward. I'm not even sure where I'm going, just moving forward, deeper into the Hive, toward the heart of whatever darkness we unleashed here. My mind is racing, fragments of memories, voices, and images swimming in and out of focus, almost like they're someone else's memories entirely. A few more turns, and I find myself in a dimly lit room lined with observation screens. Each screen shows a live feed of different containment cells. Most are empty, with only eerie fluorescent lights casting shadows. But in one cell, a subject stands perfectly still, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, his eyes wide and staring at the camera. As I look at him, his lips begin to move, speaking in that same alien tongue, and I feel the words like a pressure inside my skull. I stumble back, pressing my hands to my temples as a splitting pain sears through my head. Images flash behind my eyes, unfamiliar places, beings I've never seen before. A barren desert under a blackened sky, towering structures that twist into impossible shapes. It's like I'm seeing through the subject's eyes, or worse, through the eyes of something that's taken root within him. Psychic bleed. The term circles in my mind, a whisper I can't shake. We dismissed it in the early days of the project, believing it to be nothing more than the mind's reaction to the alien DNA. But now, I can feel it seeping into me, something ancient and calculating, a presence lurking behind my thoughts. I remember the files we found in the beginning, full of strange terminology, conscious transference, cognitive resonance, bleed potential. They were warnings, all of them, signs we ignored in our blind pursuit of discovery. The aliens weren't just biological beings, they were something more. Their consciousness, their very essence, was viral, capable of spreading, infecting, rooting itself into anything that got too close. A chilling thought hits me. The containment cells, the tests, the injections. It was never about advancing science. It was about finding hosts. The aliens we captured had been here longer than we realized, biding their time, waiting for the moment when we would give them what they wanted, vessels. I glance back at the monitor. The subject is no longer staring at the camera, but at the door of his cell. As if he knows I'm watching, his head snaps up to look directly into the lens, a twisted smile forming on his lips. I back away from the screen, the sickening realization settling in. They're aware of us, of me, and they're learning how to control us. A voice, soft and venomous, slithers into my mind, threading through my thoughts with ease. You are not alone, Ellis. It's my own voice, yet it's not. I feel a chill claw its way down my spine as I realize that whatever is inside the echoed, it's starting to bleed into me. I stagger, reaching out to steady myself against a metal desk, and spot a file lying open, its contents scattered. It's one of the old research logs, dated years before my arrival. As I skim through it, dread pools in my stomach. The previous team had reported similar incidents, hearing voices, experiencing visions, sensing presences that shouldn't have been there. Their notes, hastily scrawled and increasingly erratic, detail the slow unraveling of their sanity, the steady loss of control as something foreign rooted itself within them. In one of the last entries, the lead scientist had written a chilling note. We thought we were containing them, but we're the ones who are contained. They're using us to reach out. A tremor runs through me as I read the final words. They are the doorways, and we are the keys. I clutch the paper, my breath coming in short gasps. The implications are horrifying. The echoed weren't just test subjects. They were the beginning of something far worse. The aliens had allowed themselves to be captured, infiltrating our minds and bodies from within, using our own curiosity against us. And now, I can feel it. A presence that's not my own, whispering thoughts that don't belong to me, nudging me forward, deeper into the hive, closer to whatever purpose they've planned. I try to resist, to hold on to what's left of myself, but the urge is overwhelming. I hear whispers, faint but insistent, calling to me in that alien language, urging me onward. I know I shouldn't go, that every step I take is another inch of control I'm surrendering, but my legs move almost on their own. I'm being drawn in, pulled deeper into the heart of this place, like a moth to a flame. As I move, my surroundings blur, as if I'm seeing through two sets of eyes at once. My vision splits between the stark, sterile corridors of the hive and something else, something ancient. I see flashes of an alien landscape, barren and lifeless, shrouded in mist. And in the distance, figures loom, silent, watching, waiting. I feel a surge of fear, a panic clawing at my insides, but it's distant, muted, like it's happening to someone else. My own emotions are slipping, replaced by something colder, calculating. The voice returns, louder this time, echoing in my mind. "You are ours now, Ellis. You were always ours." I try to scream, to fight back, but the words are swallowed, my thoughts tangled with theirs. It's as if I'm dissolving, my mind merging with something vast and incomprehensible. I'm not just seeing their world, I'm becoming a part of it, a vessel, a bridge. I stagger forward, barely conscious of my own movements, my mind a storm of thoughts, voices, and visions. Somewhere, deep down, I know I've already lost, that I'm too far gone to escape. But there's a part of me, a faint, desperate spark, that refuses to surrender. I press my hands to my temples, focusing every ounce of will I have left, trying to block out the voices, to reclaim some fragment of myself. I can't let them win, can't let them consume me. But as I stand there, trembling and alone, I feel the cold, unyielding presence settle deeper into my mind, whispering promises of oblivion, of a silence so absolute it will erase everything I am. And in that moment, I know the truth. There is no escape, not for me, not for anyone. I'm not sure how long I've been walking, but it feels like hours. My body moves on autopilot, driven by that alien compulsion lodged in my mind. The corridors have grown darker, more distorted, as if the very structure of the hive is warping around me. The walls pulse faintly, almost like they're breathing, alive with the energy of something that shouldn't exist in this world. I'm nearing the central containment area, the deepest part of the hive. It's where we kept the most unstable subjects, the ones who exhibited advanced signs of psychic bleed and exhibited violent tendencies. We used to joke that this section was the heart of the hive, but now I realize it's far more literal than any of us understood. This place isn't just housing the experiment, it's become a part of it. Ahead of me, the heavy metal doors to the containment area stand slightly ajar. They shouldn't be open. These doors are designed to stay sealed under any circumstances. But as I approach, I hear it. A low, rhythmic sound, like the beating of a colossal heart, pulsing in sync with the hum I can feel in my bones. It's deafening, drowning out my thoughts, consuming every other sound. I press forward, my legs moving without my consent, driven by that presence burrowed deep within me. Inside, I see them, the Echoed, standing in eerie silence. There are a dozen of them, maybe more, each one staring straight ahead, their faces blank and expressionless. They're not moving, but there's something unsettling in their stillness, as if they're waiting, anticipating. They look almost human, but there's something wrong. Their skin has a strange sheen, almost translucent, and their eyes are completely black, like voids that draw you in and never let go. In the center of the room stands Subject X01, the very first of the Echoed, the one who started it all. His body is twisted, covered in scars and symbols etched deep into his flesh, a grotesque mockery of humanity. He looks up as I enter, his lips curling into a smile that doesn't reach his hollow, empty eyes. "Welcome, Doctor Ellis," he says, his voice a blend of his own and that alien tone, deeper and more resonant. "We've been waiting for you." I open my mouth to respond, but no words come. I can feel his gaze piercing into me, into that part of me that still clings to my own identity. He steps forward, his movements slow, deliberate, as if savoring every moment of my fear. "You thought you could control us," he whispers, his voice filling the air like a toxin. You thought you could contain what you didn't understand, but we were never prisoners. We were ambassadors. The word sends a shiver down my spine, cold and unforgiving. Ambassadors? My mind races, piecing together fragments of memories, of documents, of warnings we brushed aside in our arrogance. We weren't studying them. We were hosting them, giving them a foothold, a way in. The Hive, I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. It was always yours. His smile widens, a ghastly expression that stretches across his face. Yes, Doctor. Ellis. You built it for us. You nurtured it, fed it with your own kind. And now, it's time. He raises his arms, and the other echoed shift, turning in perfect unison, their eyes locking onto me. I can feel their presence, pressing down on me, suffocating. Their minds meld into a single, overpowering consciousness, a collective that reaches out, clawing into my thoughts, tearing away every fragment of who I am. In that moment, the final pieces fall into place. The Echoed weren't just test subjects, they were vessels, keys to an alien intelligence that had been waiting, lurking, using us to create a bridge between worlds. And now, with the Hive fully operational, that bridge is complete. I try to move, to run, but my body is no longer mine. I'm rooted in place, paralyzed by their collective gaze, trapped in a web of consciousness far beyond my comprehension. I can feel them inside me, in my mind, sifting through my memories, my thoughts, erasing what they don't need, assimilating the rest. Subject X-01 steps closer, his face inches from mine. We are the doorway, he murmurs, his breath cold against my skin. And you are the last key. The words echo in my mind, a final horrifying revelation. I am the last piece, the final mind needed to open the bridge completely, to allow them full access to our world. And as I stand there, helpless and consumed, I feel my consciousness slipping away, dissolving into the vast alien presence that fills the room. The last thing I see is their faces, those black, empty eyes staring into mine, and I realize with sickening certainty that they are no longer human, no longer individuals. They are one, a hive mind, a singular alien entity that has infiltrated us from within. And now, I am part of it. Darkness envelops me, a void where time and space have no meaning. I'm adrift in a sea of consciousness, thousands of voices intertwining, thoughts melding into an incomprehensible cacophony. Yet amidst the chaos, there is a cold clarity, a purpose that isn't my own, but feels inescapably right. Slowly, sensations return. I become aware of the cold floor beneath me, the sterile scent of the facility mingled with an undercurrent of something ancient and alien. My eyes flutter open, and I find myself lying in the center of the containment room, the Echoed standing around me in a perfect circle, their faces devoid of emotion. I push myself up to a sitting position, and as I do, I realize that the oppressive weight in my mind has lessened. The voices have quieted to a faint whisper, like an echo fading into the distance. For a fleeting moment, I dare to hope that perhaps I've regained control, that maybe I'm still myself. "Welcome back, Doctor." "Ellis," a familiar voice says. I turn to see Doctor. Reyes standing at the edge of the circle, her eyes clear, her demeanor calm. Relief washes over me. "Doctor." "Reyes," I gasp, my voice hoarse. Is it over?" She offers a small, sad smile. In a manner of speaking. I struggle to my feet, my legs unsteady. "We have to get out of here," I insist. "We have to warn them. The world needs to know what's happening." She tilts her head, observing me with an unreadable expression. "And what would we tell them? That we tampered with forces beyond our understanding? That we invited an invasion from within?" "Yes," I plead. We have to do something. She steps closer, her gaze never leaving mine. It's too late for that, Ellis. The process is complete. A cold dread settles in my stomach. What do you mean? She reaches out and places a hand on my shoulder. You are the key, remember? The final piece. I jerk away from her touch, backing up until I bump into one of the echoed. Turning, I find myself face to face with Subject X01. His eyes bore into mine, but this time, I don't feel the overwhelming presence from before. What's happening? I whisper, my voice barely audible. Dr. Reyes sighs softly. You resisted longer than most. Your will was impressive. But in the end, we all serve the greater purpose. I shake my head, refusing to accept her words. No, I won't be a part of this. She steps closer again. You already are. We all are. Together, we form the bridge. Through us, they will come. A sudden realization strikes me. But if they come through us, then maybe... I trail off, an idea forming. Maybe I can still stop this. She raises an eyebrow. And how would you do that? Desperation fuels me. By breaking the connection. If we're the bridge, then removing us might sever it. A flicker of something, pity perhaps, crosses her face. It's not that simple. The connection is beyond physical form. But I don't listen. Instead, I lunge toward the control panel on the wall. If I can initiate the facility's self-destruct sequence, perhaps I can destroy the Hive and prevent the invasion. As I frantically input the override codes, alarms begin to blare. Red lights flash throughout the room, bathing everything in an ominous glow. The echoed remain motionless, unperturbed by the chaos. Dr. Reyes watches me with a serene expression. You can't stop it, Ellis. It's already begun. Ignoring her, I finish the sequence. A computerized voice announces, self-destruct sequence initiated. Facility will detonate in 10 minutes. I turn to face her. I won't let them take our world. She sighs. Our sacrifice won't matter. The bridge is built. They are coming. The ground beneath us trembles as systems begin to overload. I expect panic, chaos, but the echoed remain eerily calm. Their eyes are fixed on me, a collective gaze that sends chills down my spine. Why aren't you trying to stop me? I demand. Dr. Reyes steps forward. Because it's futile. Even in destruction, the connection remains. You've only hastened the inevitable. Frustration and fear collide within me. I don't believe you. She smiles sadly. I know. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierces my mind, a searing bolt that brings me to my knees. The voices surge back, louder than ever, a torrent of alien thoughts crashing against my consciousness. I clutch my head, struggling to maintain any semblance of self. Through the haze of agony, I hear their whispers. We are one. We are many. We transcend. I grit my teeth, fighting against the overwhelming force. No, I won't let you. But it's like battling a storm with a candle. The more I resist, the stronger they become. Images flood my mind, visions of cities falling, skies darkening, humanity succumbing to the will of an ancient alien intelligence. The facility shakes violently now. Sparks fly from the walls, machinery explodes, and fires break out, consuming everything in flames. The countdown ticks away, 5 minutes remaining. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Reyes kneels beside me. Let go, Ellis. Embrace the new existence. There is peace in unity. I look up at her, tears blurring my vision. Why? Why are you doing this? Because it's the evolution of our kind, she replies softly. A chance to become part of something greater. I shake my head weakly. At the cost of our humanity? She gazes at me with a mixture of compassion and detachment. Humanity is just a step, This is transcendence. The heat intensifies as flames engulf the room. The echoed remain untouched, standing like silent sentinels amidst the inferno. The ceiling begins to collapse, debris raining down around us. 3 minutes left. Summoning the last of my strength, I force myself to stand. If this is transcendence, I want no part of it. Dr. Reyes rises with me. You don't have a choice. I meet her gaze, a newfound resolve hardening within me. Maybe not, but I can choose to die as myself. She tilts her head. Can you? Without warning, I break into a run, dodging falling debris and leaping over obstacles. My destination, the core reactor. If I can manually overload it, I might amplify the explosion, ensuring the hive and everything within it is utterly destroyed. The echoed make no move to stop me. Perhaps they believe it's pointless, or perhaps they can't act outside the collective will. Either way, I have to try. Bursting into the reactor chamber, I shield my face from the intense heat. The control panels are sparking, some already damaged beyond use. Frantically, I search for the manual override. Behind me, the doorway fills with figures. Dr. Reyes and the echoed stand watching, their expressions unreadable. Ellis, she calls out, her voice somehow carrying over the roar of the fires. This will change nothing. I ignore her, focusing on the controls. My fingers dance over the buttons, initiating the overload sequence. Warning sirens blare anew, a deafening chorus of impending doom. 1 minute left, I turn to face them one last time. If this stops even a part of them from coming through, it's worth it. Dr. Reyes nods slowly. Goodbye, Dr. Ellis. As the reactor reaches critical mass, a blinding light fills the chamber. The heat is unbearable, searing my skin, but I feel a strange calm wash over me. In my final moments, the voices fade, replaced by silence. My thoughts are my own again. A small smile touches my lips. Perhaps I couldn't stop them entirely, but I chose my own fate. The explosion consumes everything. Silence settles over the barren desert, where the hive once lay hidden deep beneath the surface. Smoke billows from the barely perceptible fissures in the ground, the only signs of the devastation below. Miles away, in a dimly lit government office, a man in a suit listens to a garbled transmission, the last recording from the hive. Dr. Ellis's voice comes through, fragmented and distorted. They, coming, bridge, stop. The transmission cuts off abruptly. The man leans back in his chair, a grim expression on his face. He picks up a secure phone line. Initiate containment protocol at Site Theta, he orders. We may have a breach. He hangs up and gazes out the window at the setting sun. God help us, he murmurs. Far beneath the earth, amidst the rubble and ruin, something stirs. A faint glow pulses briefly before fading into the darkness.